So let's see. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Martin Grundy. I'm consultant at ATIX, the company behind the orcharhino, which today's webinar will be about. More specifically, I want to talk about using job templates within orcharhino to update your SUSE Linux enterprise hosts. Short note, my talk will be divided into two parts. In the first part, I want to give an overview of orcharhino. What is orcharhino? How can you use orcharhino? And how can orcharhino help you in your daily tasks? And the second part will be a live demonstration where I will show the upgrade process of a SUSE host. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat or the questions button. If any questions are open after the first or second part, I will try to answer them then. So, good. Without further ado, let's start with the first part about what is orcharhino. Okay, now. Short delay. What is orcharhino? Well, orcharhino in essence is our lifecycle management tools for hosts, for VMs, bare metals, cloud hosts, and orcharhino can help you actually in several ways. As you probably know, if you have to manage infrastructure, doing everything by hand is quite tedious and, of course, error prone. So you have to do the same tasks again and again. And of course, you want to find a better way to manage all your hosts. So let it be virtual machines, bare metal servers, or cloud instances. It would be far more advantageous, of course, to have a sort of scheme or a workflow you can adhere to deploy your hosts. Deploy your hosts, yes, right. So what you essentially want to do is to automate your tasks. And this is where orcharhino can help you. Orcharhino can manage the complete life cycle of your server, beginning from the initial deployment to the configuration and the software management. So let's have a look at the different levels where orcharhino can help you. Let's start with the deployment. Well, you normally have some sort of virtualization layer to interface with your deployment of your hosts. This could be VMware, KVM, libvirt, or oVirt. Or, of course, you could deploy into the cloud like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud platforms. orcharhino is able to do that for you. So if you have your server, you can actually automate your complete deployment into these instances with orcharhino. How is this done? Well, orcharhino interfaces with the API or the interfaces of the corresponding virtualization layer, and that does the job for you. Oh, I see. Short leg. I'm sorry. So orcharhino can do this automation for you in this sense. So you can define your initial deployment of your host, network setup, operating system, target, which is shown here, and then put it into a template, and you have to define it one time and one time only, and then you can deploy hosts with this template again and again. And of course, after you have deployed such a host, you can or should configure it. of course, you can do that in the, during the initial installation, but especially if you want to configure a host which is already deployed or have large configuration blocks, so to say, you can use or should use a configuration management tools. There are several tools available, like Ansible, SaltStack, and Puppet, commercial and non-commercial, and they do the job for you. So first your host gets installed, and then in the second step, Orcharhino is able to automatically provision your host or configure your hosts with these tools. And you can pick the one you like. So you probably already have one in your environment, in your infrastructure. You could integrate that into Orcharhino, or you could set it up from scratch. I'm sorry. So you then have your host which is deployed, which is configured, and then we have a third level, so to say, which we can address, which is the patch management. So when you deploy a host, you want to make sure that the software on your host is up to date, so that you have complete control of what packages are installed and what the state of these packages is. So you can react, for example, to some kind of security vulnerability instantly and have the overview which of your hosts are affected and which are not. Well, you can do this via Orcharhino, and you can see here all the operating systems we support with patch management. So you have the Debian-based operating systems like Debian itself and Ubuntu, of course, and you have the Red Hat-based systems. So Red Hat itself, you have CentOS, of course you have Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, you have SUSE, which we will see later, and Oracle. So you can actually define the state of your software which you want to provision your hosts with, and then roll this software out to every host available in your infrastructure. And of course, what you can also do is to use errata. So for the ones who do not, So for the ones who do not know what an erratum is in essential a sort of, let's call it, list, which contains the information to fix an issue on a host, software-wise, maybe a security vulnerability, a patch, an update, or even an upgrade. And these you can integrate. You can integrate into Orcharhino and roll them out. But of course, if we talk about patch management, we have to talk about release management. What does that mean? Well, you have to define states for your software, which means you must have a defined state which you can test on your host software-wise, and then after you test it, you then want it to promote to your productive environment to make sure that you don't have some kind of dependency regarding your packages. So all of your systems do not break. And you can do this by defining so-called environments. You can define a set of hosts within a development environment, can develop your application there, then you can push it to your test environment, and then, of course, after you've tested everything, your complete set of software, you can push it to production environment. So in essence, Orcharhino is the tool to manage the life cycle of your server and the complete life cycle, starting from deployment to configuration management to release management. And we at ATIX want to help you with it. For that reason, we have different departments. I'm, of course, from the consulting department, where we want to ensure that our customers do not experience any problems with Orcharhino, which means we help in initially setting up the Orcharhino developing a sort of scheme how to deploy it best regarding your infrastructure. And we also we can also train you in order to ensure that you can manage your Orcharhino without any problems if you want to. Then we have our support. Support is essential if you want to distribute an enterprise product. So if there are any issues with Orcharhino, you can address it to our support. But ideally, we just want to make sure that you don't run into any issues at all. So any questions you have regarding use of Orcharhino, you can send to our support. And then we have our engineering department. This is, of course, very crucial too. We want to ensure that Orcharhino is always up to date. We want to include new features. And of course, we have to test our Orcharhino in advance to make sure everything is working accordingly to plan. So what we already developed is the support of all these. So many of the support of many of these operating systems actually stems from us regarding the client or subscription manner of Orcharhino. So we always want to ensure that our Orcharhino is up to date. So much about the theoretical part. Now I want to show you how to use Orcharhino to upgrade your SUSE hosts. So I will end the slides now and start the screen sharing. So okay. So now you should see the demo system. So this is our Orcharhino demo system. You already see a list of hosts registered to the Orcharhino with a lot of different operating systems. But what we want to look at is, of course, the SUSE operating system. So in order to understand how to upgrade a host in Orcharhino, it is quite helpful to look how to deploy a host in Orcharhino. So I just want to show it to you in 1 to 2 minutes. So I click here, create hosts, select a name, for example, SLES 15 Service Pack 3. And then all I have to do is to select the host group, which is SLES 15 Service Pack 3, which was configured in advance. And you see all the other fields here are filled in for me. So for example, where I want to deploy it here on our VMware, which lifecycle environment. So this is a testing host, which software the host gets to contribute, which Puppet server it should use. So it has Puppet in here. And this is all I have to do. Once it is configured, I can have a look at how big the virtual machine will be, which will be deployed here. Details to the operating system, architecture, media partition table, and of course, network setup and additional parameters and information. And I can then click submit. And the host will be deployed. So this will be the procedure. This would be the procedure to deploy a SLES 15 Service Pack 3 host. Now, how can I update such a host? Well, for that reason, we just switch back to the host overview. Just wait a short moment. And I've already prepared such a host in advance. So we take this one. So this host was essentially installed like the one before. So this is more or less a fresh SLES 15 Service Pack 3 host. So now regarding the upgrade, we first have to ensure that our system is ready for the upgrade. And this actually depends on the system you want to upgrade. Well, of course, it's quite simple for such a newly installed system. However, a system in production might contain additional software. May it be databases, may it be some applications. So before the upgrade, please always be sure that you follow any upgrade specific steps for your software, which means contacting your vendor and reading the docu of your software. In this case, I followed the documentation of SUSE, and all I had to do in this case, because there's no database or else installed on it, is to modify the super configuration and disable multi-kernel support, which I already did. These are actually just commenting to lines in the package manager configuration file. And we are ready to go. So I already prepared this. So how do I upgrade? Select schedule remote job to do exactly that, to execute a script on the host. So now we are here in the job invocation overview. And we have different options here. First, we have to select a job category. I will select SLES. And then I will see all job templates, so all available scripts which I can execute on the host regarding this category. And I will select this one. Please don't get confused. There are actually two in here. This one is the newer one, which will be included in a future orcharhino version. So I just wanted to show you the newest one. So, and now it asks me for an activation key. What is an activation key? Well, an activation key essentially defines which repositories or content a host can see. So we have one activation key here for SLES 15 Service Pack 4 already configured. So let's have a look at it. Here are the details regarding the activation key. Might be a bit much. What you should, the take-home message here in Essential is under this tab. Here you see the list of all repositories the host should receive when becoming a SLES 15 Service Pack 4 host. So in essence, this activation key contains the information regarding the Service Pack 4 repositories, SUSE, and any additional one might need. For example, if you have Puppet on the host, you should include the Puppet repository. And of course, as we use the subscription manager, the client, to connect our host to our orcharhino, we want to upgrade it too. So we include the SLES client for Service Pack 4 here in this list. So this gives us the information which content the host will see. So we copy it and insert it here. So now I want to do some additional stuff, which means I need to review the advanced fields. Because in advance, because I want to update my host first with another content view. So what I want to do is, before the upgrade, I want to update my host, and I've therefore prepared another activation key here, which is SLES 15 Service Pack 3, because it's a Service Pack 3 host. And if I insert this key here, the host will be updated first, which I do now. Then I want to allow the vendor change, which means that packages can switch their origin, their original repositories, which might happen here actually. And I want to auto import any new GPG keys. That's fine for me. I know that there's no security risk involved in this case, so just select true. And that's all I have to do. So I see it will be executed on this host. I will upgrade it to SLES 15 Service Pack 4, which I have prepared in advance. The activation update key is for Service Pack 3, which means it will, prior to the upgrade, update from my Service Pack 3 repositories. And I will allow the vendor change, and I will allow GPG auto import, GPG key auto import. And then I can submit it. And now we see the overview here over the job. What I could do is to deploy this job to a bunch of hosts. I only have one now. I see my input here. And what I can do is, by selecting this tab, I can actually see what is happening on the host. So this here is the console output of this job. And I see at first there are some pre-upgrade steps happening. And what actually happens here is that the repositories at the host are switched to the ones which I want to update before the upgrade, which means these are actually Service Pack 3 repositories. Then the host will patch, of course. And then it will install the packages. So what happens here is that actually the metadata of the repositories is built again. And the process here will take quite a while. So what I will show you now is, as this process will require about roughly 20 minutes, is how such a job is actually looking when it's finished. So let's see. For this reason, I have this up0 host, which I've already upgraded here. So same output, same job template, same setup. What you actually see is the start from the host before that, here. Then what we see here, let's scroll a bit down. So we are actually here still at the 15 SP3 package update process. So let's have a look at this one. Just a moment to show you. Yeah, so here. After the host is upgraded, the host will then, so after the host is updated, the host will be upgraded. And this is what you can see here. For now, the host has switched to the SLES Service Pack 4 repositories and will now use these repositories to upgrade itself automatically. So you see here the overview over all packages which will be upgraded. And you see here, which is the ascension line, that the service pack upgrade will be done. And what the script does at this point is to start a try run in order to ensure that the upgrade is possible. And then it will upgrade the packages in the next step, which we shall see a little bit down the line. Here. So here you actually see the install process of the packages. And if we can now all the way to the back to the end of this output, we see the last package is installed. Then we have some post upgrade steps. Yeah, track root, init.id. And then the upgrade is done. And it actually says here, okay, access status is 0, so everything is okay. It will automatically, the script will automatically restart the host. And it asks us to check for orphan packages. Well, what does that mean? This is super packages minus orphaned. This is a step you should take after upgrading your SUSE host, because you can see then which packages are missing a source, so are missing their repository. So I did this in advance on this host here on the up0, which is simply the command super packages minus orphaned, and I see I have only one orphan packages which does not belong to any repository configured on the system, and that's the orcharhino certificates RPM, so that is fine. So after my upgrade, I can do that again, and I see that these packages are now orphan 2. So it would be a good idea to review where these packages originally belong to and see that I do not miss any repositories. For it is my responsibility in the first place to select the correct repositories for the activation keys to upgrade my host. So if I have missed, for example, a third-party repository which I actually wanted to add to the host after the upgrade process, I can find it out by looking at this list of the packages. And of course, if you want to ensure that everything works according to plan, what you always should do before an upgrade, which I didn't need to because I knew that everything would be fine, is you could actually snapshot your system, which is possible via the orcharhino itself. So you can roll back to a define state before the upgrade at any time. Good, so now let's be sure that the upgrade works. First of all, let's have a look at our upgrade which we started. So it's still running on our up1 host, not our up0. Bit laggy today. Don't mind, it's open here. And we should actually be at the package installation step. So our service pack upgrade on our up1 host is still in process. And just to make sure that don't show you anything wrong, I can, for example, cut the OS release here. And see that my host is actually a Service Pack 4 host. One word of warning. Here you see that my host is still listed as a Service Pack 3 host. This depends on the setup of your orcharhino. If you have enabled auto update of any of these facts here in orcharhino, these facts should be updated the next time you run your Ansible, Puppet, or Salt on your host. However, if you have disabled it, which is a valid option, you can, of course, edit your setup at any time by just switching here to the operating system, or, for example, just assigning a new host group all, which you might probably want to do at this case, because if you want to deploy your host again on a new state, it shouldn't be SP3 anymore, but SP4. Good. That's all about upgrading your SUSE host via orcharhino in a nutshell. So just stop sharing here and have a look at the questions. Are there any questions? Just let's wait a moment. So actually the question button had a short delay of about, I think, 1 to 2 minutes. So I'll just give it a short amount of time to be sure I don't miss any questions here. No, not that I can. No, I cannot see any questions. Not here either. Okay. So then that's the end of the webinar. Thanks for your time and goodbye.